Ladies and gentlemen, by the power vested in me, I hereby constitute this assembly as the legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. During this assembly, diplomas and degrees with all the associated rights and privileges will be awarded and conferred on the candidates whose names appear in the program. Ladies and gentlemen, please have your seats. Take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we now request you to join us in silent prayer or meditation to give thanks for the achievements of our students. I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Vice Principal of the University of Pretoria, I welcome you to this graduation ceremony. A special word of welcome to the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Vasu Reddy, the Deputy Dean responsible for teaching and learning, Professor Henny Stander, the Deputy Dean responsible for postgraduate education and ethics, Professor Maxis Skuman, and the Deputy Director of Student Enrollment and Student Administration, Mr. Pidri Muller. And then too, a special word of welcome to Professor Henk Potgieter. I believe that this is Professor Potgieter's last graduation ceremony, as he will be retiring soon. Ladies and gentlemen, during this ceremony, we will be conferring 5 postgraduate diplomas and 470 degrees, including 13 doctoral degrees. Today's graduation ceremony is one of 30 ceremonies in the autumn graduation period. During this period, a total of 11,637 qualifications will be conferred. There can be no denying that the contributions of the University of Pretoria to the total graduate output in South Africa is significant. Indeed, according to a Department of Higher Education and Training study, 1 in every 10 degrees awarded in South Africa are UP degrees. Furthermore, more than 17% of all master's degrees awarded in South Africa annually are awarded by the University of Pretoria. And then 15% of all doctoral degrees awarded by traditional universities in South Africa are conferred by the University of Pretoria. In addition to this, more than 27% of all engineering degrees and more than 15% of healthcare qualifications awarded by traditional universities in South Africa are awarded by the University of Pretoria. Of course, it is not only in terms of the number of graduates that it qualifies that the University of Pretoria makes a contribution and a significant contribution to South African society. The university also seeks to contribute to society in terms of the graduates, the type of graduates that it produces. This, in effect, brings me to the focus of my very brief presentation, namely the graduate attributes that the University of Pretoria wishes to see or wishes to inculcate in all of its graduates. In 2012, the University of Pretoria adopted a set of attributes which it believes all of its graduates should possess by the time they complete their studies. I will focus briefly on some of these attributes. Firstly, however, let me state that the University of Pretoria tries to inculcate these attributes in its students because we believe that it is this set of attributes that enable our graduates to hold their own in the world of work, whether they work for institutions or companies in the public or private sector, or whether they work for themselves in their own enterprises. Furthermore, we believe that it is this set of qualities that makes UP graduates sought after in the public and private employment sectors, both in South Africa and abroad. It is this set of attributes that sets UP graduates apart. And now I'll very briefly run through 4 or 5 of these attributes. In the first instance, the university tries to inculcate a sense of autonomy and confidence in its students. This is beside the fact that we are committed to ensuring that our students obtain the qualifications for which they are registered. UP wishes to ensure that its graduates can function autonomously and confidently as individuals within the work environment locally and globally. The university wishes to ensure that they can demonstrate initiative in their work and personal lives, and above all, that they are self-reliant and self-driven. In the second instance, the university wishes to inculcate a sense of leadership in its graduates. The university works towards ensuring that it produces a type of graduates that are capable of assuming leadership when leadership is called for. Thirdly, we wish to inculcate a sense of curiosity. UP graduates should have a thirst for knowledge and apply the knowledge that they acquire to create innovative solutions to work and social problems. And then fourth, and very importantly, we wish to inculcate a sense of integrity in our graduates. UP graduates behave ethically and with integrity within their professions, their personal lives, and in broader society. Lastly, and most importantly, we hope to inculcate a sense of social responsibility in our students. The university endeavors to ensure that its graduates have a sense of social responsibility. It endeavors to ensure that its graduates strive towards working for the public good, social justice, equality, and fairness wherever they find themselves, both nationally and globally. Importantly, the university hopes that its graduates will use the skills that they have acquired through their studies to improve the living conditions of those less fortunate than themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, it's at this point that I wish to introduce a narrative to illustrate what distinguishes, to my mind, UP graduates from others. The narrative is about the circumstances and achievements of a young graduate named Kenneth Mabelane. While I'm sure that many amongst you may have read about him in this past weekend's newspapers and the university's website, the singularity of this narrative bears repeating. Now, Kenneth Mabelane is a determined young man from Soshanguve who graduated with a bachelor's degree in music from the University of Pretoria on Wednesday, the 3rd of May, 2017. That's last week. And I'm citing here from the article in the newspaper. Over and above, beside the fact that he graduated with a bachelor's in music, Kenneth also happens to be blind. Despite his blindness and socioeconomic circumstances, Kenneth has always been determined that nothing would ever prevent him from studying and pursuing his dream of becoming an established musician. Indeed, he has already released a single titled Make It Better, which is available online. While studying for his bachelor's degree, Kenneth was a member and the leader of the blind ensemble at Tux. In addition to his commitment to his music, Kenneth also has a strong interest in cricket and has recently represented South Africa in India as part of the national blind cricket team. And I quote him, he says, "Like music, sport is for healing, reflecting, and expressing." According to Kenneth, both cricket and studying music have helped him to get where he is today. And I quote him again, he says, "Representing South Africa was a big achievement for me." He believes that keeping busy is part of conquering the self or self-absorption. And by graduating, he is also reaping the benefits of his commitment to his studies. Kenneth states that with growth comes challenges, and that these challenges form part of conquering the self or self-absorption. He observes, and I quote, "So long as you want to grow, you will have challenges with the self. The older you grow, the better you get at mastering it." Close quote. Mrs. Anna-Marie Rousseau, who was his Braille music teacher from grade 1 at the Princehof School for the Blind, speaks very highly of Kenneth. She describes him as an independent young person with exceptional leadership qualities, a person who is currently mentoring countless young people. Kenneth currently works in a call center while searching for a teaching post. He lives with his mother, who also happens to be blind. And following the death of his sister earlier this year, he is the sole breadwinner of his family. He plays in a band and sings for gigs. He plans to further his studies in the fields of law and sports journalism within the near future. So, ladies and gentlemen, to my mind, Kenneth exhibits some of the attributes that UP aspires to engender in its graduates. He is resilient, self-reliant, and self-driven. He has a sense of autonomy and confidence. As reflected in his ongoing mentoring of young people seeking his help, he clearly also has a strong sense of social responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that some of these attributes, particularly the attribute of resilience, also characterize the life orientation of the graduates and diplomates present here today. For how else can one explain the fact that you had completed your qualifications under the difficult circumstances that had characterized higher education in 2016? Yeah, I might note that our success rates for students last year, despite the turbulence of the sector, had been no lower or no different to any of the preceding years. And I attribute this largely, of course, to the support of your lecturers, but to the abilities of the students sitting here. The last haul must have been difficult, and I want to commend you for having completed it successfully. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at this point to congratulate all the graduates and diplomates for their achievements. Like Kenneth, all of these graduates and diplomates have special attributes, and that is why they are graduating or receiving their advanced diplomas or postgraduate diplomas from the university today. All of us here will agree that this ceremony represents a culmination of much hard work and sacrifice on the part of those who are graduating. So once again, my sincerest congratulations to everyone who will be receiving their degrees today. Congratulations for having stayed the course. Congratulations for having reached the goal of successfully completing the programs for which you had been enrolled. And of course, congratulations to your parents, guardians, partners, sponsors, and others who had supported you materially and in other important ways during the period of your studies. And then finally, congratulations and sincere thanks to those who had lectured and supervised the students who will be receiving their degrees today. We owe a big debt of gratitude to the colleagues sitting on the stage because it's they who have guided you to success, obviously acknowledging that 99% of your success is due to your hard work. Ladies and gentlemen, in view of your achievements, I'm now going to invite the people sitting in the stands to applaud you for having attained what you have attained. And then I'm going to invite the graduates and the diplomates to applaud the people in the stands for having supported you through the course of your studies as well as your lecturers. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention. There has been an oversight on my part. In my welcoming of everyone, I had omitted to extend a special welcome to the following. Of course, I'd forgotten to extend a special welcome to the guests of honor here today, the diplomates and the graduates. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this an important ceremony in your lives. I had also omitted to welcome the chairpersons of schools, heads of departments, directors, emeriti, honorary professors, and other lecturers and their spouses. I apologize for the omission. Welcome, colleagues. Then I need to welcome the supervisors, co-supervisors, and external examiners of Dr. Randi. I need to extend a special welcome to the representative of the Student Representative Council, who will present the SRC Academic Honorary Colors. Welcome. And then, of course, a particular word of welcome to all spouses, parents, and other parties, as well as dignitaries whom we may not be aware of. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I request the Dean and supervisors to introduce to me the candidates present, whose names appear in the program, in the order in which they appear in the program.
Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the postgraduate diploma in Heritage and Museum Studies. Nkateko Lucy Mabasa. Mamafa Esther Moloisi. Listen Languletali Ndlovu. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidate has complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Arts, Mashuda Sedibeng, and she is graduating today as she's being honored by the Department of Historical and Heritage Studies for her achievement. Ms. Sedibeng majored in History and Heritage and Cultural Tourism. In law, Delano Percy Abdol. Zara Ali. Megan Annandale. Mpo Oriseng Raitsecha Afane. Jenna Atkinson. Nina Cleo Atfield. Marie Okamp with distinction. Devon Ivor Baird. Clara Bell Barnes with distinction. Cassidy Taylor Barrett with distinction. Alchemay Abigail Beacon. Jed Berman. Stephanie Bezaidenhout. Antonita Bianca Boni. Monique Bosch. Gavin Arnold Bueta. Matthew Botma with distinction. Marnus Brummer. Carla Simone Camara. Sarah Aileen Charlton. Brian Chipa. Chelsea Lee Chivers. Catherine Ann Clark. Ruan Kutsia. Sunel Lelani Kutsia. Lauren Collins. Lita Mbongeni Konko. Marcel de Almeida. Carla de Jaar. Matthijs Johannes de Jaar. Sihle Senti Dlamini. Dane Brian Dixon. Benele Pumelani Dlamini. Mbali Michelle Dlamini. Michelle Dubel. Ruan de Bruin. Marilise Dutoy. Holly Ann Freeman. Takunda Keith Furusa. Taslin Shante Gallagher. Shazia Ghani. Armand Geiser. Lee Chandray Nicole Glynn. Brandon Grobbelaar. Jonay Grobler with distinction. Shani Groenewald. Michael Matthew Grosset. Abdil Gumbo. Bianca Haramsa. Kaylee Ann Hill with distinction. Cliff Schlatzwayo. Christopher Hojam. Michael Oliver Howard. Francois Eugene Himan with distinction. Jesu Joba Ilesanmi. Gabriella Ingram. Shemoni Isaacs. Sean Janse van Rensburg. Aaron Benjamin Johnston. Melissa Francis Uester. Sunay Stephanie Jordan. Jemima Kandamiri. Kia Mochetse Portia Kechakilwe. Megan Ann Kenny with distinction. Tandeka Nokwanda Koza. Natasha Kleinhans. Shani Klopper. Konstantinia Korskitidis with distinction. Kaugelo Kupa. Asitandile Liwela. Miles Hughes Stanhope Lovell with distinction. Jeremy Ernest Lucas. Gladman Tokozisi Lukele. Ilona Luther. Demi Jane Leons. Tabitha Madziwanzira with distinction. Molemo Nkeku Makubedu. Letabo Queen Malepa. Yinshla Maluleke. Tafatswa Gift Mapani. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Tumelo Marema. Thank you. Tendai Mandiudza Marimo. Vinik Marnovic with distinction. Angelo Vasili Raptis Marquez. Gail Carol Marufu with distinction, and she receives the Fiat Justicia Floating Trophy for the best achievement in the criminology modules at third-year level. Kudzai Mataba with distinction. Rukutso Tadiwa Lavinia Matanda. Tondirai Theodore Matanda. Charmaine Mantwa Matitebane. Tisetso Itumuleng Matole. Sipokazi Mato. Marachikana Machejo. Tembelishle Nonkulule Konolwazi Mbata with distinction. Notemba Busisiwe Mbokane. Erin McCarthy. Tyler McChrystal. Katlejo Nancy Matley. Tokozani Confidence Mguni. Masero Bane Magdalene Modiba. Yashin Arjun Mohanlal. Tamarin Morgan. Caitlin Jean Morris with distinction. Emma Jade Morton. Maserole Ananias Morudu. Thank you. Thank you. Tabiseng Khonse Motobi. Khomotso Moshechwa. Tegan Alex Mouton. Shanri Murray. Marushka Nerissa Murugan. Nyarazzo Chioneso Muzembe. Emily Jane Nain. Susan Niman with distinction. Marta Nontlantla Nkosi. Sponiso Melvin Nkosi. Thank you. Nozibele Carol Ngoko. Cholwe Sanzia. Yvonne Busisiwe Ntisa. Aisha Bushle Benkosi Nwadu. Nicholas Lucas Petzwinkler. Petronella Piper with distinction. Zuko Kusheka. Lorica Rautenbach with distinction. Huvasan Reddy. Taylor Reichart. Tafatswa Michelle Sakarombe. Barbara Nyasha Sambo. Machabane Alpha Sebapu. Motloleng Ramaseko Ruben Sebola. Tariro Sekaramai. Bonang Nancy Sello. Thank you. Paige Courtney Sharman with distinction. Jonathan Michael Sherlock. Sizakele Siabonga Lulama Shongwe. Luyanda Sibanda. Pumelele Slindokushle Simelane. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mduduzi Andris Sindane. Shanae Lee Steenkamp. Merrick Morris Steenkamp. Zanay Stradom. Renetta Petronella Taljard. Thank you. Edward Jacob Teichert. Mamosadi Liatile Tamaha. Thelma Tela. Wonderboy Vusumuzi Temba. Thank you. Thank you. Reratilwe Malokwa Tobehane. Luzanne Gaino Titus. Emma Louise Tratchler with distinction. Siobhan Kyla Untermolen. Shanae van der Merwe. Elmonee van Niekerk. Eckhard Charles van Tonner. Gerardus Jacobus van Twisk. Annelie van Vollenhoven. Kayla van Wyk. Nomvuyo Tembokushle Velem. Luzanne Venter. Nadia Verschveld. Quilleen Virtue. Angelica Idia Vieira with distinction. Nicole Visachi. Dikeledi Irene Wana. Shannon Robin Wathan. Reese Lloyd Westcott. Jason Williams. Thomas Patrick Wood. Lauren Alexandra Woods. Fiona Caroline Warwood. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have all complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Arts, Languages. Leisha Boyson. Rachel Claire Bramwell. Estia Brits. Natalie De Silva. Daniel Frederik Du Plessis, he receives the prize, the David's Trust Prize, for the best undergraduate essay on a Dutch-Flemish theme from literature and linguistics, as well as the Lina Spies Floating Trophy for the best independent essay on a topic from Afrikaans poetry, or for the best creative contribution by a second-year student. Magdalena Johanna Du Plessis. Janae Catherine Friel. Keegan Gaspar. Magdalena Johanna Grunewald. Renette Cecilia Hanekom. Tanya Haynes. Nicole Lauren Martin. Ledile Moloko Rachel Masemola. Refilwe Kamsile Mbungane. Andrea Mayer. Laurinda de Nobrega Montero, with distinction. Lene Niemand. Delia Rabi, with distinction. She also receives the J.L. van Schaik Prize for Afrikaans for the best third-year student in Afrikaans, as well as the G.S. Ninabet Floating Trophy for the best independent study by a third-year student on a linguistic topic in Afrikaans, as well as the A.P. Grevie Floating Trophy for the best independent essay by a third-year student in the component Afrikaans literature. Samantha Redfern. Angie Bell Julia Paulo Tembe, with distinction. Robin Lee Williams. In English Studies, Tamlin Manuela Adolf. Monique Bum. Eric Bitzer. Michaela Ashley Champion. Karina Huda. Ulrike Marie Hoogaard, with distinction. She also receives the Oxford University Press Award for the best final year student in English Studies. Jasmine Aileen Hurley. Kolofolo Rosemary Langa, She also receives the Philip Milstein Prize for the best student with English as a second language at a school who showed the best progress in the module at university. Riranzu Fortunate Nkuna. Namshla Lita Yanginsimbi. Tyler Sheldon Pierce. Emily Linda Pitt. Shanae Marie Prinsloo. Gabriel Sky Shand. Donné Swichelaar. Estie van Wijngaard. Braina Rachel Wilding. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Heritage and Cultural Sciences in Heritage and Cultural Tourism. Bernadette Bainches. Elizabeth Christina Kalitz. Michelle de la Harpe. Mitchell Rutendo Kanyama. She also receives the Sakabula Prize for Heritage and Cultural Tourism for the best undergraduate student in Heritage and Cultural Tourism. Maggie Tsuba Moshlala. Madri Skitter. Liesel Surita Stein. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Political Sciences in International Studies. Gavin Brunner. Tiese Karen Chiwaya. Del Rey de Lunga. Elizabeth Doby. Nuraina Ibrahim. Kojo Ampadu Esa. Zanele Venolia Fuse. Linda Kushle Bagazile Gama. Zuzile Schlatzwayo. Lisa Cusano. Tabia Ursula Linkscheid, with distinction. She also receives the Politica Award for the Best Third-Year Student in Political Science, as well as the C.F. Nivode Award for the Best Third-Year Student in International Relations. Ndaya Dorcas Lukoji. Stabile Sandile Mashlangu. Teboho Fortunate Mashlobongwane. Karabo Samuel Mayane. Aviwe Luando Manifolo. Lorinda Darlene Marion. Lebohang Bertha Matebula. Sanele Nonшлакanipo Luyanda Mbingo. Leandre Cheryl Ann Fiona Mervis. Nonkululeka Mbato Mokhashowa. Sepang Dintle Moshesh. Makuse Lebohang Petle. Unarin Bavavelo Mudemeli. Neil Andrew Corneli Mugabe. Rindai Sean Muzanechita. Takalani Pumelele Ndo. Virginia Khabeljane Kadimeng. Prudence Nkomo. Letlokhonolo Malebo Ranta. Monet Ripple. Misha Sharon Roberts. Lawrence Dutoit Ruetman. Tebelo Tiamo Sefula. Azar Sheikh Usman. Odirileng Vinolia Siabi. Christine Maria Smith. Shazil Lindiwe Shabalala. Ernst Christoffel van Graan. Andrea Larissa Venter. Mark James Wood. Josiah Zuakinyu. Ruramai Zvirevo. Thank you. In political studies, Sesetu Abrahams. Andile Onke Bam. Demi Lee Campbell. Mpo Audrey Dlamini. Kedifense Bonolo Lepinka. Nonkululeka Hope McKenna. Lerato Cecilia Masilela. Adelaide Mazibuko. Ketiwe Zongesiwe Bongwa. Mamecha Mohotlane. Tulisile Twayita Nduvane. Tiana Sakota. Kumbulani Msizi Siluma. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Social Sciences in Philosophy, Politics, and Economics. Sieran Christopher Burks, with distinction. Kier Robin Chalano, with distinction. In Industrial Sociology and Labor Studies, Beverly Tandeka Chauke. Boitumelo Dijale. Zintle Prudence Gladler. Chamonix Fortune. Canisile Matalia Gumede. Tembisa Guiza. Non Caniso Shlongwane. Chiezza Cynthia Joboringo. Vivian Rufaro Kazembe. Tracy Nogutula Konyana. Michelle Teresa Rufara Kumire. Tanaka Maimba. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nowetu Yoliswa Lusanda Mdluli. Riatile Mohachi Monto. Tubelishle Muriyango. Yardley Ndebele. Nomushle Teboho Gwenya. Cindy Zanele Nhlapo. Romance Machidiso Rabasoto. Cholanang Celia Sebolai. Monica Smith. Munashe Sasha Tesoro. Valerie Schumer. Geachte visierector, die volgende kandidaat het voldoen aan al die vereistes vir die graad Baccalaureus Artium Honoris in Afrikaans. Marelise Brink with distinction. Ruan Kutzer with distinction. He also receives the Atekafia Prize for an honor student who excelled in Afrikaans linguistics. Shauna Lees Meyring with distinction. She also receives the Humanen Rousseau Prize for the Best Independent Essay on a Literary Topic on Honors Level, as well as the Tafelberg Publishers Prize for the Best Honor Student in Afrikaans. Hannes Geier Vermaak. In Ancient Languages and Culture Studies, Danelle Bosch with distinction. There you go. Samantha Claire Wright Hibbert with distinction. Anushka Lottering with distinction. Alexandra Ferreira Santos. Shannon Enid Wakefield with distinction. In archaeology, Lara Lucia Kraljevic with distinction. She also receives the D.R. Henish Book Prize for the Outstanding Achievement in Archaeology at postgraduate level. Chantal Dominique Kruger. Zanenhle Nontobeko Msibi. Nokusho Ngobeni. Anton Rousseau. Rachel D. Simpson. In Biblical and Religious Studies, Paul Christian Skuman. In English, Kalila Shelby Callahan with distinction. Dylan Coleman with distinction. Daniela Sigrid Dedekind with distinction. Lauren Senna Fouchier. Carly Ann Furno. Elmarie Kruyer with distinction. Emma Louise Paulette. Ashley Michelle Stevenson. In philosophy, Anthony Bucker with distinction. Inga de Waal with distinction. Marie-Karine Labuschagne with distinction. Johannes François Oberholzer. Christy Ann Schoonby with distinction. Sasha Lee Smith. Johannes Benjamin van Zyl with distinction. In French, Monique Eugenia Barnard. Kumbirai Rutendo Borerwe. Antonetta Luisa Bupo. In international relations, Siphumelele Ernest Duma. Negar Fayazi. Andrew Harris. Edwin Papi Hlase. Miram Mahdi. Nonzamo Penelope Malindisa. Stuart Sandile Mbanyele. Albertus Skuman with distinction. Peter Nodia Scribante. In political science, Vinette Dupria. Mashlatsi Lesiba Ramoroka. Hermanus Nicolaas Rustorff. In applied language studies, Bronwyn Elizabeth de Lange. Roshandre Audrey Patricia Kibido. In translation and professional writing, Tilana de Wachter. Marlo Duplessis. Monrique Avalon Hennig. Doreen Swart. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Historical and Cultural Science Honours in Heritage and Cultural Tourism. Christoffel Rudolf Buerta with distinction. He also receives the Getaway HCT Honours Award for outstanding performance in heritage and cultural tourism at the honours level. Ruan Clark Henning. In history, Malcolm Anderson Dunlop. Nobunkwele Holiness Mbem. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Nicole Elsie Nontlantla Sitole with distinction, and she receives the J.L. van Skyke Prize for History for the best student in history at the honours level. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Social Sciences Honours in Anthropology. Natalie Amanda Belcher. Mantoine Langage. Giochino Matteo Maniscalco. Dimpo Matlala. Tian Nell. Lucas Johannes Lionel Potgieter. In geographical sciences, geography and environmental science, Kulani Rachel Maluleke. Leslongonolo Mashejo. Gray Ian Cameron Stocker. In development studies, Temulola Aluwade Malito Adioye. Motolani Ebunoluwa Adesina. Tendai Lindiwe Violet Chikore. Sake Istorina Felazzi. Saif Tadel Kidane. Faneres Bonge Mfredisi Boniswa Kuzwayo. Tafatswa Talent Kutombo. Selina Taviso Mabidi. Rumbitsai Gillian Madioma. Zinzile Lisa Manka. Lumka Zanele Manzini. Patience Maseko. Rangwato Inessentia Mashiane. Tafatswa Simporosa Mazo. Tamara Claudia Michel. Nogotula Geraldine Yamweda. Andisiwe Candace Sehoma. Sandra Nobushle Sitole. Japiso Tefo. Gail Karen Vermaak. Sonia Yonehara. In sociology, Robin Dormel with distinction. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Arts in African-European Cultural Relations, Ophélie Romance Lore Kofi. Musinguzi John Akiki Kahimbara. In African languages, Stephen Manangane Nkadimeng. In archaeology, Tobias Johannes Kutsia. Lou Marie Fraser. Trent Clayton Saylor. Dominique Marie Verkerk with distinction. In biblical and religious studies, Etheresia Orietta Damons. In philosophy, Josias Tembo with distinction. In geography, Susanna Jacoba Enrico with distinction. In linguistics, Faith Chiedza Chapanye with distinction. In environment and society, Izelk Buerta. In development communication, Lydia Batseba Ramaisela Maredi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In applied language studies, Mirinda Kolev with distinction. Carla van Wyk with distinction. Ilana Wilkin. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Historical and Cultural Sciences in History, Charlotte Erasmus with distinction. Paul Anthony Ludi with distinction. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Diplomatic Studies. John Machete Mohashoa. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Security Studies. Robin Michael Blake. Michaela Elinas. Lebohang Motsomotso. Mr. Vice Principal, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Social Science in Anthropology. Pia Reinecker with distinction. In Development Studies, Prisca Motero. Mr. Vice Principal, the supervisors will now introduce the doctoral candidates.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Jo Marie Shader, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor Literarum, with a thesis entitled A Literary, Exegetical and Social Scientific Analysis of the Book of Jonah, an exposition of its ancient social values. Prepared under my supervision and with Professor Willem Boshoff as co-supervisor. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Literature with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Tupana Solomon Kekana, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Literature with a thesis entitled Masitla Pelo Dingwaluncha Spedi, prepared under my supervision. In his thesis Masitla Pelo Dingwaluncha Spedi, the researcher critiqued Aristotle's idea that tragedies are of the same intensity. The books Tladiwari Khati and Lucas Muchelechele prove clearly that there are two different types of tragedies, pathos and tragedy. The research emphasizes the description of the Sepedi tragic narratives more than the pathos. The focus of this study was on Sepedi tragic narratives because such investigation has not been conducted with indigenous languages. In 2010, there was only one pathos, namely Tladiwari Khati in Sepedi literature. There has not been another one in 52 years since the release of Tladiwari Khati, whereas there are many tragic narratives. This research will be of value to readers since it will add to the existing pathos narratives research and makes a distinction between pathos and tragic narratives as well as the different level of tragedies. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Literature with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce you to Jose Lamoine Adelimo, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Changing Livelihoods in Central Mozambique, from Coconut to Land, under my supervision. In his thesis, the candidate examined ethnographically the rise and fall of a coconut-based enclave economy in central Mozambique. His results showed that the stability and predictability of the coconut economy of more than 100 years ended with the demise of the coconut palms due to disease in the 2000s, leaving local people vulnerable to acute impoverishment. Attempts by the government, non-governmental organizations, and private companies to restore people's livelihoods have not been successful in achieving food security and production of surpluses, despite benefiting a small number of local people. Thus far, these initiatives have proved woefully inadequate, as they have led to an increasing demand for and conflicts over land, as well as reinforcing the distinction between insiders and outsiders. The candidate suggested that solving these problems will require both a clarification of the new laws regarding land tenure and new policy initiatives that are genuinely in the interests of the local people. The law must also be adapted to recognize that land has become a commodity, even in areas of customary tenure, and to exercise some control over these transactions to ensure that local elites do not monopolize the benefits of development interventions to the exclusion of the majority of the local population. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Maria Leroux, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled An Acoustic Investigation of English Vowels, as produced by English L1 and Setswana L1 Foundation phase learners, prepared under my supervision and with Professor Hela Jordan. In a thesis, the promovenda proved the benefit of intervention concerning the vowels of English on the auditory perception, articulatory, phonological awareness, and literary skills of English second language learners in grade 3. Sketching the rationale of the study, the language and education policy of South Africa was examined. Emanating from this discussion, the low literacy scores amongst young learners in South Africa were described and possible reasons for this occurrence cited. It was hypothesized that increased knowledge of the vowel system of English would improve English second language learners' literacy skills. The quantitative results indicated that the vowel spaces of the EL1 and EL2 participants differed markedly before intervention. After intervention, the vowel spaces of the experimental group were seen to approximate those of the norm group. The improvement of the phonological awareness skills and literacy skills of the experimental group, as well as the changes in the vowel spaces that were noted for this group, proved the hypothesis that intervention in the form of additional input concerning the English vowels would enhance second language learners' perception and articulation. These results supported the opinion that second language learners need quality teaching of the sound system of the language of learning. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you David Jacobus Francois Marie, who has complied with the requirements for the degree D.Phil with a thesis entitled A Critical Realist View of Psychology as a Science, prepared under my supervision. In the study, A Critical Realist View of Psychology as a Science, critical realism as a philosophy of science for psychology was investigated with a focus on the early work of Roy Bhaskar. His work cannot bridge the ontological divide between the natural and psychosocial domains. It is argued that the naturalist realism, assuming one ontology, can account for both domains and clarify how epistemic access to reality is possible. This access lies in discursivity, which in science becomes critical investigation. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Zephanias Alberto Matsimbe, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Voting Behavior in Mozambique, a case study of Mashishi district prepared under my supervision. In his thesis, the promovendus identified and examined factors shaping voters' party preferences during elections in Mashishi district, southern Mozambique. The study utilized different theoretical approaches, allowing for a critical interrogation of much of the literature on African elections that employs an often untested assumption that ethnicity underlines, determines, and explains voting behavior in African elections. The findings of the study indicate, rather than ethnicity, that age forms a clear and distinctive determinant of voting behavior, with older voters still mainly casting their votes on the basis of historic party loyalties, identifying with parties in terms of the country's anti-colonial liberation struggle, while the youth tend to be much more independent of such loyalties, conforming more to a rational choice explanation of party preference. Overall, party identification influences voting choice to some extent, but this attachment is more strategic than emotive. No substantial gender differences were found, nor differences based on a rural-urban divide or on levels of education. This study makes a solid contribution to the small but growing body of scholarship on African elections, providing insights that could evolve into the development of new theory on voting behavior. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Angelika Malevsky, who has complied with the requirements for the degree DPhil International Relations with a thesis titled Nuclear Weapons Proliferation and International Security Selected Comparative Case Studies, prepared under my supervision. Now, the promovendus investigated the debate on and the global responses to nuclear proliferation and or potential proliferation by North Korea and Iran, respectively, and the implications of this for regional and international security and stability. In her analysis, she compared the nuclear and missile program of the two case study countries and drew a conclusion regarding which of the two countries would pose a greater regional and global threat. The promovenda also compared the global responses to the two case studies and evaluated the effectiveness of nuclear diplomacy and the implementation of economic coercive measures against North Korea and Iran. And the value of this study is that it contributes towards the understanding and knowledge of the nuclear programs of Iran and North Korea. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Kabila Nubong, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled The Applicability of the European Process of Regional Integration to the African Context, an analysis of institutional and policy frameworks in the European Union and in the African Union, prepared under the supervision of Professor Lorenzo Fioramonti. In his thesis, the promovendus investigated the diffusion of the European Union experience of integration to the African Union in order to determine the extent to which it is applicable to the African context. He found that the European experience of integration has diffused to the African Union through the process of normative emulation and is both relevant and applicable to the African context. His research highlights a number of lessons the African Union could draw from the European integration experience in order to fast-track the attainment of its integration milestones and to make a significant contribution to Africa's development. Mr. Vice Principal, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Meneer vice-prinsipaal, ek stel vir u voor Margarethe Elisabeth van der Merwe. Sy voldoen aan die vereistes vir die graad Doctor Philosophiae met 'n thesis getiteld 'n historiese perspektief oor die kontroversiële lewe van Johanna Brandt, 1876 tot 1964, prepared under the supervision of my colleague Dr. Jackie Grobler. In haar proefskrif ondersoek die promovende die veelsidige lewe van Johanna Brandt. Gedurende die Anglo-Boereoorlog was sy 'n konsentrasiekamp-verpleegster en 'n boerespioen. Beide onderwerpe waaroor sy bekende boeke geskryf het. Na die oorlog het sy in die huwelik getree met Dominee Louis Brandt, 'n Nederlander. Mevrou Brandt was allermins 'n konvensionele predikantsvrou, want sy het haar verdiep in die teosofie, in natuurgeneeskunde, in die nuwe erebeweging en in die ontluikende vrouebeweging in Suid-Afrika. Sy het veral 'n skryfsterbekendheid verwerk vir haar verskeie boeke. Haar impak en invloed was aanvanklik tot Suid-Afrika beperk, maar na haar suksesvolle jaarlange toer na Europa en die VSA om haar teosofie opvattinge en haar natuurgeneeskundige keure bekend te stel, het sy internasionaal bekendheid verwerf. Sy was die stigter van die International Harmony Movement. In hierdie proefskrif het die promovende daarin geslaag om reg te laat geskied aan 'n prominente Suid-Afrikaanse vrou wat op vele terreine uitgeblink het en wêreldwyd haar merk gemaak het. Meneer vice-prinsipaal, ek versoek u om die graad aan die kandidaat toe te ken.
Hiermee ken ek die graad Doctor Philosophiae toe aan die kandidaat met al die regte en voorregte daaraan verbonde.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Mr. Ahmed Mkalazi Kalumba, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Wealth Creation on Land and Environmental Sustainability, the Case of East London Industrial Development Zone, West Bank, South Africa. It has been prepared under my supervision and Dr. Issa Van Aard as co-supervisor. In this thesis, the doctoral candidate adopted an ecological industrial development framework to investigate industrial zone development and environmental sustainability using a hybrid mixed approach. The study contributed to science by providing a detailed trace meta-analysis of one of the world's phytoecological zones using indigenous and relatively few species in their corresponding soil samples from Western Bank industrial area. The study also analyzed the legislative and environmental management initiatives adopted in the zone with further evidence derived from community perspective and the impacts of industrial development on socio-ecological systems, land cover change, and environment in general. This information is vital in enhancing South Africa's aspiration to become a sustainable, economically prosperous, and self-reliant nation. An over-adoption of indigenous vegetation species in phytoremediation was proposed to ensure ecosystem stability and promote sustainable development. Furthermore, the study recommended the need for greening all stakeholders, a collective responsibility, industrial, environmental sustainability, and provision of government support to achieve industrial sustainable development. Several other lessons could be drawn from this study for other industrial zones in the country and elsewhere. The findings were published in 3 international peer-reviewed journals already. 5 articles are under review, and numerous papers have been presented at both local and international conferences. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Mr. Vice Principal, I introduce to you Stephanus Petrus van Aert, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis entitled Resources, a part of the narrative in biography, and a creative component titled 4418, prepared under the supervision of Professor Henning Pieterse. In his study, the promovendus explored the extent to which letters play a role in establishing a narrative in biography writing. The aim was to establish when letters can be trusted as the truth and therefore act as a vehicle to convey an accurate account of a life story. In order to do this, a comparison of 2 biographies on Etienne Leroux and Charles Bukowski, respectively, was drawn, referring specifically to the biographer's use of letters as source documents. The promovendus also explored the lives, methods, and muses of the 2 authors. Information collected during interviews with 6 biographers was presented to illustrate the importance of letters as a source in life writing and to reflect on the future of life writing in an era in which the use of letters is waning. The second component comprised an edited collection of Afrikaans letters written by Etienne Leroux to famous South African artists, and the creative component was an Afrikaans novel in manuscript under the working title 4418. Mr. Vice Principal, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the proceedings. Before we close, I wish to invite all present for refreshments afterwards in the tents situated in the front of the Rembrandt Hall. You are requested to stand for the singing of the national anthem and to remain standing until the assembly has been dissolved and the academic procession has left the auditorium. The words of the national anthem are printed on the inside back cover of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Ladies and gentlemen, by the powers vested in me, I hereby dissolve this assembly of the University of Pretoria.